So just to kick it off, please excuse me, I have a little bit of allergies, so I'm every now and then I'm coughing. I wanted to share that Ford Next Generation Learning is sponsoring these webinars. We are working closely with ACTE to build out the Career Academy division. And there is a great connection to other parts of ACTE. So hopefully many of you are coming from work-based learning and some other organizations as well within the ACTE system. Just at a high level, Ford Next Generation works with communities across the country to help them transform teaching and learning to be more authentic and relevant for them. And we use the Career Academy model to do that. And these are the three, this is our framework. This is what we use in all of our work. And as you know, career academies are a way to expand career and technical education. And the academics are taught through the lens of the academy. So welcome. This is our framework. We also do a lot of work around powerful partnerships, which means that we help build systems and structures and relationships between employers and career pathways, the teachers and the students. So that's a little bit about us. I don't want to spend any more time there. I would like to turn it over to Beth, who is going to be leading us today on this journey of the roundtable. And Beth, why don't you introduce yourself and take us away?
Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Grislak, and I am a community coach and an instructional designer with Ford NGL's The U. And our session today on the Business Roundtable is the first in what we hope will be an occasional series on Ford NGL's work-based learning continuum. We thought we would kick off with the Business Roundtable because it is a low-intensity activity. It's a nice, easy one to start with that's focused on career awareness and exploration. And it's a nice activity to engage academy and pathway teachers, students, and employer partners in learning a little bit about each other and helping those teachers and students learn about the employer partner and their industry or organization. So what are our objectives for the webinar today? Hopefully at the end of this 30 minutes, you are, and Cheryl, if you would kick forward the slide for me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Back one.
Oh, this is
there we go. Yeah, this is why I should do it too. We debated whether or not I should do this myself or Cheryl, and my problem is I start talking and then I forget to turn the slides. So in a quick 30 minutes, hopefully you'll walk away knowing what a business roundtable is, why we call it a low effort, high impact activity, why we think the Business Roundtable activity can be used to support students and teachers in making, not always, but often an initial great connection between the school and a local or regional business or organization. Of course, importantly, what it takes to plan, implement, and follow up a business roundtable. And of course, we always want to make sure that you walk away with a great resource to help you plan a business roundtable. And we'll talk more about that in a minute as well. So let's jump in. What is a business roundtable? Well, it's generally a quick, what we like to think of as a well-defined, it's bounded. There's a good solid structure to it. It lasts 75 minutes or less for all the participants. We like to think of it as a real value-added activity for engaging employer partners with teachers and students. And that's because, again, it has a nice structure. So when people walk into the room, they kind of have a really good idea of what they're doing, where they need to go, what they need to do, rather than just say, for example, walking into a career fair and kind of wandering around and not having a good sense of what they should do, who they should talk to. So this has got a nice structure to it. It's a great activity for building a new or building upon an existing relationship between teachers or students and an employer partner. It's also a nice way, If you have a school of a size where you're going to be bringing in a group of new teachers, it's a great activity to help them engage with your business partners. And it's a way to signal to those new teachers, hey, we're a school or we're a community that values the role that business partners play in our school with our teachers, with our students. And here's the way that we're going to help you understand that. And importantly, it's an opportunity or a way to get our employer partners into our schools. And when we bring them in, that often, again, it's one of those ways to break down the walls between school and the outside. The goal of a business roundtable, as we sort of already mentioned, is that opportunity for teachers and students to learn from or about an industry or company through a focused topic. And we'll talk about some of those examples of what those topics might be, but within 75 minutes or less, we're going to keep those topics pretty structured. So one last thing about the Business Roundtable before we jump on to some other things. The most important thing that you can remember if you're the person that's planning the Business Roundtable is, we often use the language in schools around field trips. And one of the ways that when the work-based learning continuum, of which the Business Roundtable is part of, we try and differentiate those experiences is we really think about them as experiential learning. And in order for learning to really take place, there has to be a focus on skills. And whenever possible, with some thoughtful planning, can you make connections to pathway or core content standards or content areas? So even though it's a quick activity, we always want to be looking for those ways that we can help teachers and students make that connection between what employers are doing and what they're doing in their classrooms with skills and content. So keep that in mind as you're planning that activity. So let's move on and talk a little bit about why we call a Business Roundtable a low effort, high impact activity. So if you're the academy coach or you have a role in the school that you're the one that's planning or facilitating an activity like the Business Roundtable, when you look at all the activities that might comprise the work-based learning continuum, you're going to, in your role, spend proportionately less time planning and preparing for this activity than you will for a lot of other activities that involve bringing together business partners, teachers, or students. So again, relatively low effort, but you're going to have a high impact on a relatively large number of teachers or students. So that's a win when we can do that. For teachers or students, it's a low effort because we're keeping them in the school site, so we're not having to deal with transportation and other issues, and we can usually keep it within that single class period. So we're not keeping them away from other classes and from other parts of the school day. It's also in that short period of time giving them a chance to engage with 3 to 5 business partners. So again, nice win for them. And for an employer partner, in about 2 hours, including prep time, they're having the opportunity to interact with anywhere between 16 and 24 teachers or students. So great opportunity for them, short period of time, great opportunity to interact with lots of different kinds of people, students or teachers. So let's jump over and look at how Business Roundtables can look at helping teachers make connections between school and the world of work. So I mentioned that, in 75 minutes or less, you're going to keep the conversations pretty focused. And I said that, some of these might be helping teachers build some relationships with employer partners, and maybe in other cases, you might be building upon existing relationships. Some of the 4 bulleted ideas that are shared here are idea generators. These are some things that we think are worth doing business roundtables around, but you might use these ideas to get your juices flowing and you might come up with some other things. But remember, it's got to be a topic that can be addressed in a pretty short period of time. So teachers might sit and talk with employer partners about how could we infuse some industry-specific language or some industry examples into their classroom teaching. Some of you might know this as teaching through the lens. So how can I pepper what I'm doing in my classroom with an example, kind of bring in some of that real world authenticity? Hey, we're doing this today. And did you know that at Ford Motor Company, they use this same practice, or this is the language that they use? Also, in many of your buildings, there are portrait of the graduate posters on the wall. There might be employability posters. We might be talking about 3 C's. But how do we bring those off the wall and bring them to life for our students as teachers? So teachers might sit and talk with employer partners about how those skills are at the core of the work that they're doing in their business or industry, so that again, when teachers are coming back to their classroom, they now have some ways or can provide students some reasons for, we're really going to focus on teamwork today in our class. And that's because you're part of X Academy or you're interested in X career. And we can tell you that they really value and utilize teamwork a lot in that setting. Also, as many of you know, the age-old question we spend all our time answering as educators: why do I need to know this? Well, maybe our employer partners can help us answer that question for students. So I'm an English teacher sitting down with an employer partner. Can you just tell me a little bit, what does English look like in your world? How are you using written, verbal communications? Can you share an example of a handbook that you've had to write, or an example of some of the presentations that you put together, so that I can say to my students, there's value in what we're doing in this class? I taught social studies. It's pretty hard sometimes to convince students that they need that in the real world. But when I am comparing the value of different resources or assessing cause and effect, those are skills that people use in different business and industries. So if I can make those connections for students, maybe they can see the value in my subject area a little bit better. And last but not least, sometimes we are super excited because we're bringing a new business partner into working with us. So as teachers, it's just, we might be providing them an opportunity just to get to know that employer a little bit. So we're bringing in people from different departments within the organization so that teachers can sit and learn just a little bit about some of the core work that's part of that organization, so that teachers then can begin to think about, how could we best utilize this employer partner as we move forward in our planning and developing SMART goals, etc. So those are just some of the ways that you might utilize business roundtables to help teachers make connections with employer partners. We always want teachers to do any experiential learning that's part of the work-based learning continuum before students. And why might that be? Cheryl, can we hop back one slide? Yep, one more. There we go. So why do we want teachers to engage in a business roundtable or any activity before students? And I think many of you know this, but it never hurts to say it again. And that's because when teachers have experienced it themselves, they can translate that then into thinking about what they can do to better prepare their students for that experience. Sometimes it's even about convincing students to participate in that experience. Sometimes students aren't initially, especially when they aren't used to doing some of these activities, they don't understand what the purpose is. They're not even sure they want to do it. But if teachers have experienced it, they can talk students through it, and they can then they can help prepare them. So when you walk into the room, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see 5 tables with an employer partner at each table. You're going to find your table, and then you're going to sit down, and you're going to have 10 minutes, and this is what's going to happen. They might also help students prepare lists of questions to ask the employer partners because they themselves had to prepare a list of questions when they sat down with the employer partners. And they can help students prepare different questions, because if you've got 3 or 4 students sitting at a table, they can't have all the same questions prepared. But the teachers will know that because they were sitting at a table already with other people and needed to make sure that they could ask different questions. And last but not least, and sometimes I think, especially with high school students, we forget that we have to do this with them. But first of all, they shouldn't walk into that room cold, not knowing anything about those businesses or that industry that they're about to talk about. So how can teachers prepare students by helping them engage in some research ahead of time about those businesses or that industry? And then once they've done that, how can we help those students have some confidence when they walk in the room to engage those employer partners, make that eye contact, shake their hands, say thank you, feel confident when they're articulating their questions and doing any of the follow-up questions that they might have. So that's why it's always important, whenever possible, to have teachers experience any kind of work-based learning activity before students, and certainly a business roundtable. So what about for students? Well, for students, again, and it's going to sound very similar to what we had teachers experience. They experience or see those portrait of the graduate skills, that poster sitting on the wall. They hear their teachers talk about 3 C's. You have to be better at communication. You have to know how to collaborate. When you graduate, employers are going to expect you to have soft skills, employability skills. But now they're not hearing it from us. They hear us talk every day, all day long. Now they're hearing it from the people who are potentially actually going to employ them. And whether we want to admit it or not, as teachers, they're going to respond to that in a little bit different way. So that's one reason why Business Roundtable might bring those skills to life in a different kind of way for students than they would if we were telling them about them. And now they can answer their own question about why they need to know a content area. So if we've set them up to talk with an employer partner about different aspects of science, or to explore some mathematical concepts with employer partners, then when they walk away, the next time they're in class saying, why do we need to know this? You as the teacher can say, well, you tell me why we need to know this. What did employer X say to you the other day when we were sitting in the business roundtable? So I love the fact that we're now possibly able to turn the tables back on the student and ask them to answer the question of why they need to know that. The next thing too is, we want to give students that opportunity to see their future selves and to see what it would take to be prepared to be a good entry-level employee in a business or industry in which they're interested. And so sitting with employer partners, especially HR departments of different organizations, and hearing what kinds of experiences, what kinds of learning, what certificates, what technical skills might they need to have in order to be a good candidate for a position in that organization or that industry, might be very motivating for students. So another great use of a business roundtable. You can also use a business roundtable for students as preparation for a deeper engagement with a business partner down the road. So maybe a little bit later in the year, they're going to do an industry or work site tour, or maybe they're getting ready to do a job shadow in that industry a little bit later on. This is a way to help create some foundational knowledge and understanding for those students about that business or industry before they go out and do that deeper dive. So we're arming them with some knowledge and some of that confidence, because now maybe they'll have a familiar face or two when they go out for that tour or that job shadow. Also, our students often can have antiquated ideas about the nature of different businesses or industries. And, you know, we can tell them, no, 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 that's not what that business does, or that's not what that industry looks like anymore. You know, to be honest, a lot of those ideas come from their parents' perceptions of what a business or industry is. But if they can sit down with an employer partner and hear from them how dynamic and interesting that business or industry is, and where they're going in 3 to 5 years, and the way that AI is going to play a role in that industry, or how automation or mobility is going to come into play, it might generate some interest or curiosity on that part of the student in a business or an industry that maybe they had previously written off or thought maybe they didn't have any interest in because it didn't play into their strengths or their passions. But when they hear that employer partner describe it and talk about where they're going, it really does pique their interest and want them to learn more. And last but not least, you know, kind of the basic, most, basic idea for a business roundtable is they're part of a pathway or an academy, and they're already interested in this area. And this is just their first opportunity or their first point of connection or their first entree point into engaging with a business partner. So those are some of the great ways that you can use a business roundtable to engage students. What about the employers? Because there's certainly some value added for the employers as well. So first and foremost, and again, I think some of these probably make sense or you've already thought about them, but it provides that employer partner with the opportunity to connect with potential future employees. And not only that not only in connecting with potential future employees, they're getting to sort of assess and evaluate those employees, and they will understand that maybe your students as future employees are going to be coming to them with some additional skills, with a familiarity with the work. Maybe they'll recognize that they won't have to train them up in the same way that they would have to train other future employees. So it's a potential win-win for both of you. They can see why it pays to engage with your students, and they're already building connections and relationships with folks, with students that could be their employees down the road. It also creates the opportunity or the space for them to have some ownership in the transformation and the way that you are trying to change the way that students are doing school. So as you're opening up spaces for students to really engage in work-based learning and make connections between classroom and the real world, you're now giving those employer partners an opportunity to have some voice and some ownership in doing that. They're becoming an investor in education. And someone long ago in my past said that as soon as someone understands a little bit more about education or has a role in education, they now become an advocate for it. So you are helping that employer partner become one more advocate for the work that you are trying to do and achieve. Of course, it also strengthens partnerships between organizations, businesses, community groups, etc., with education. Also, and employer partners might not always recognize this, but once they get into working with you, you can really help them understand this, that it really does increase employee morale when they have the opportunity to work with students. People by nature want to feel like they are doing good and that they are helping other people. And so when their employees are given that opportunity to teach a student, to interact with a student, to show them the work that they do on a daily basis, they really do leave at the end of that day feeling like they have done something good. And that only helps them be more productive as employees, and it helps them develop leadership skills because they are now leading and feeling responsibility for educating, mentoring, and supporting that student. And of course, any employer partners are always looking for opportunities for community service, and everyone wants to have a good reputation as a business in the locally and in the region. Okay, So we did mention that we are going to share a resource with you at the end. So I just want to give you a little bit of a preview about it now. It is called our Roundtable Discussions Protocol. It's really a nice resource. It's short, but it's really chock full, soup to nuts of everything to walk you through this protocol. So I've given you lots of topics that you could build a business roundtable around, and I didn't want to leave you hanging and have you thinking, oh my gosh, how do I actually do this? I've got all these great ideas now. So do know that when we are finished here, you will get this great resource to help you do that. What I want to do now over the next...
I actually already popped it in. So
great.
I just
Good.
landed there. So sorry.
Not a problem. So I'm glad you have it. Before you really dig in deep to the resource, though, I did want to plant a couple seeds in your brains. So before you pick up the resource, I want you to say, I'm not going to plan a business roundtable for at least 6 weeks, because you want to lay a strong foundation and ensure that you can get the employer partners that you want at this event. And before you can do that, you have to know what your goals and outcomes you want for the Business Roundtable event. So why is it that you want these folks to come in and talk about what it is you want them to talk about? If you're clear about what your why is, then the employer partners will be clearer about what their responsibility and role is in that day. If you are working with a teacher team and you're doing this on behalf of the teacher team for the students in a pathway or academy, make sure that you are clear with the teacher team, or that teacher team is being clear with you about the ask. Don't just say, oh, great, we can do a business roundtable, let's do one. Again, look at your SMART goals. What are the things you're wanting to achieve? And make sure that you're doing the business roundtable at the right moment for the right reasons that are helping you achieve those goals. So once you've got that all figured out, great. Now you're making that ask at least 6 weeks in advance so that the employer partner can get it on their calendar in a timely manner. As educators, and I'm sure you've heard this, we often work very last minute. We pivot a lot so that we can meet the needs of our students, but our employer partners don't traditionally work in that way. And if we want to get the right employer partner, and we want that person to feel well prepared and that they feel like they're not being rushed to make a decision about participating, then we want to give them that time in advance to make that decision and to get all of their questions and things answered. So please make sure that you're reaching out to them at least a month in advance and getting that on their calendar. Also, if you're asking them well in advance, then you can make sure that you are getting what I like to think of as the best right employer partner for this specific activity. I am sure you have great employer partners. That's not the question, that's not in question at all. Many of you have employer partners that will jump anytime you pick up the phone, and that is wonderful, but they all have different strengths, and not everyone is going to be the best partner for a business roundtable when it's one employee sitting and talking to several teachers or students about a specific topic. So you always want to think about the diversity of your participants. Remember, students, teachers, they like to see folks that look like them. So that might be something that you want to consider when you're reaching out to your business partners. Sometimes smaller businesses, depending on your focus topic for the business roundtable, can give you a fuller picture about skills or core business, because they are often doing multiple aspects of the work, rather than someone from a big organization that might be only focused on a very specific aspect of the work. Sometimes it's really HR folks that you want from different organizations rather than someone from the engineering department or design because of the topic. So again, if you're planning well in advance, you can make sure that it's the right person from your favorite business partner that's showing up on that day. I hope that makes sense. The other thing to keep in mind is 2 days in advance. And I say 2 days very deliberately. If you do it too many more days in advance than that, it gets lost in email or it gets lost in people's minds. And if you do it only one day in advance, people get anxious. About 2 days in advance, send out an email, pick up the phone and call. If they're hyper local and you can swing by and do it in person, great. But make sure that you're sharing some key logistical information with them. And I know lots of us now, we have access to calendars. We just, we might put all the details in their calendar invite, and that's great. But you know what? Sometimes people don't look at all of that calendar information. So don't just rely on it being there. Do that email, do that phone call, do that in-person contact. Make sure they have directions to the school building. You might assume that's a given. Don't assume that. Also, a lot of times, if you're coming to a big school building, there are several doors that look like the main door. So be very clear with them about what door it is on the building. Now, a lot of buildings, the doors are numbered, but help them find that right door. Also, there's all schools have visitor parking, but depending on the time of day and what else is going on, visitor parking spots can be full. So where's the backup place? If the visitor parking is full, where else can they park? That's one of those things that will make people anxious if they don't know where else to go. Let them know if they're going to need to bring their driver's license for a volunteer background check. Folks like to know that in advance. If they get to the office and someone says, hey, I need to see their driver's license, they're going to want to know why that person at the front desk is asking them that. Also, when they go in that front door, sometimes it's not clear where the office is. So once they get in that door, describe to them how they get to the office. And more important, once they get to the office, what do they do? Who's going to be there to greet them? Maybe that's going to be you. Even better if it could be your students, your student ambassadors. Have them to be there, have them chatting them up down to the room where the business roundtable is going to be. That will be a great experience for both your students and your employer partners. And then just that little way of taking care of them and helping the employer partners know that you were thinking about them and think they're important. Make sure that there's water and coffee and tea if it's morning, or water and soft drinks if it's an afternoon. It's a small thing, it's important. It's only 60 to 75 minutes, so I don't think you have to have food, but just a couple of those little things to let them know that they matter. Last thing, you've had a great business roundtable. Everybody's happy, feeling good. You're going to have one or two of those employer partners that are going to try and slink out the door real quick because they're on to their next thing. Do whatever you can to make that eye contact. Wave at them across the room. Mouth thank you. If you can, fist bump, high five, shake their hands, but try and get that personal contact before they exit. Within 24 hours of the roundtable, please send them a thank you email, a handwritten note. And if you're sending them an email, just if you can, add a couple pictures that you took during the session the day before. If you could get a quote or two from teachers or students that were involved, just about what they thought was great about the day. Again, that's another one of those ways that help people feel like they really brought value and that it was a good use of their time. The other thing we always want to do too is ask people how they felt about the event. So, just a very brief survey, but focus on, did they feel prepared for the event? Did they feel like the desired outcomes for the experience were met, at least as they understood them? And then do they have any ideas for making the experience smoother the next time around? And you please take their feedback seriously. So if they really felt they really all gave you feedback strongly about something that needed to be fixed for the next time, and they came back the next time and it wasn't fixed, that's a real signal to them, about how you value or don't value their input. So, get their feedback and then act on it. And then, for employer partners, every engagement is about ROI, that return on investment. And for employer partners who are giving their employee, giving time, in terms of their employees, one way that you can give them a return on investment is positive mentions in the media. So whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, share a few pics from the day, tag them, hashtag them, share business logos, mention them by name, whatever it might be. Just get them out there on your social media. It's free publicity for them, and it's very, low cost, no cost, except for time for you. But again, it shows that appreciation, and it helps, again, with what we talked about earlier with reputation. So that is it, I think, right? So we're going to revisit just very quickly the objectives from the webinar. So hopefully now you're walking away knowing what a business roundtable is, why we call it a low effort, high impact activity, how it's an activity that really can be used to support making those connections, either initial or building those stronger connections between teachers, students, and those business partners. What it takes to implement, plan, and follow up after a business roundtable. And as we mentioned, and Cheryl has already shared with you, a great resource to support your design of a business roundtable that hopefully will be high quality and have great impact for all participants. Cheryl, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Beth. I really appreciate it. I hope that you got a lot out of this. But don't leave yet, because we have a couple more things. First of all, if you want to learn more about this learning continuum after this, feel free to reach out to us here. And also, I guess we'll pop that in the chat. But also, if you're interested in joining the Career Academy section for additional $10, you can use this scan to get to where you need to be. We're trying to build this into a division so we can continue this work. And with that, I'd love to open the floor up for any questions, comments, thoughts, anything. Just hop off mute or raise your hand or whatever.
I have a quick question. I'm Maureen, or Miss Chavez Rita. I'm from Griffith High School in Griffith, Indiana.
Okay.
And I'm a business teacher, and we've just started career exploratory internships at our school this year. So, and unfortunately I came in just a bit late. So it sounds like that this is something that I could or would definitely potentially use to start recruiting or getting more of our local community businesses to partner with internships.
You're on mute, Beth.
So because you came in a little late, if you saw the Ford NGL work-based learning continuum, the internships are way over here on the right side, and the business roundtable is way over here on the left side. So it is an activity that would begin to help your teachers and your students build relationships with businesses, so that, for example, your students could begin to know some of the businesses that might be future intern sites, potential internship sites for them. And it also would let those employer partners begin to know those students. But you would definitely want that, you want to have a focused topic around those business roundtables. And it might be about getting to know this business, this company. So you certainly could do that as an entree. What might make a good entry-level employee or a good intern at this company? They might also be able to do the business roundtable around skill development, so that, again, you could be doing this roundtable the year before, even, so that students had those opportunities to practice and build and get ready for an internship in the future. So there's definitely a connection there, and it certainly would be a great pre-activity at some point prior to that internship.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Do you think that is beneficial to, because I'm Farah from Brevard County School, and we're at the district level, and we handle the internship at our schools. So different high schools, they have different programs. So do you think that this is beneficial to invite different pathway partners to one roundtable meeting at each school, or do you think that it's much more beneficial to do them as a group, like in the construction or in the divide them to the different pathways? What do you suggest?
So I'm not entirely sure I answered the question. We typically think about them at the school level, by academy or potentially pathway. They're usually, relatively small, because they're quick. So when they get too large, it's hard to do them within a class period. So you might do several, of these, but you could do them across, depending on how big your pathways are. It might be a business roundtable for construction students from different schools. So it could be across schools. It just kind of depends. It's more about how many, are in the room and that kind of thing. And just remember that, we're trying to keep this to 60 to 75 minutes.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
What I really like about business roundtables is as I just kind of pointed out, you can focus on a pathway, you can focus on interdisciplinary. So, you could have, it could be, all the core content areas in a room. It could be focused on a like a single area. So it just kind of really depends on what your focus topic is going to be. Can be academy focused, which might have a few different pathways in it. But as long as you are clear about what you're asking, a lot of times when it's focused on that skill development or portrait of the graduate, then you can be more, at that academy level or interdisciplinary. But if it's about really investigating an industry or a particular business, then you're probably looking more pathway.
Cheryl, you're on mute.
You'd think after all these years I would learn this. Thank you all very much for joining us. I hope you found this useful. We do have a survey day there. It will only take a moment, but we really use the survey to think about what's next and to do better. I think Jess put our contact info in there if you want to reach out to us. And I see another question here, so we're going to hang out and continue to answer questions for a little bit longer. But we hope that you join us again. I think we have another one coming up, just September 11th or 12th. I should have had that on there. But we are sending it through the Career Academy section and also a work-based learning section. So if you belong to either one of those sections, you'll get the information. Okay, so the other question we had here was from Nate. What method have you had to best attract new business partners to the tables?
What I would say is it always has to be an in-person contact, and recognize that sometimes it's going to take multiple contacts. I would also work your networks. So if you already have a partner that's in that industry, in that area, see if they can help you make that connection. Also, some of you have strong connections with your city manager, your city government. Those folks often have very large business networks. But when you do get that opportunity to connect with a new business partner, the most important thing is you have got to be well grounded in your why. Why are you coming to them? And what is it that, how are you demonstrating to them that this will be a mutually beneficial relationship, that they are going to get some return on this investment? And always start small. The Business Roundtable is actually a really great way to engage a new business partner because it's one individual and it's a really short amount of time, but it gets them into your school. And once they're in your school, you can then, show them around a little bit, let them see what you're a little bit about. So I think that you don't want to jump in with the huge involvement ask right away. So start small. Come, spend this hour with us. Let us show you a little bit about what we're about, and then let's continue that conversation. But be really well grounded in your why. I know it sounds crazy, but practice it. Really know it inside and out. Rich, I see you on here. Rich does this all the time. He just welcomed 3 new partners to his business wall, at least 2, maybe 3 the other day. Because 4. Okay, because I'm on Twitter, I'm following it. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Rich, but would you have any other advice to add to that?
You're on mute. Or you're quiet.
Nope, it's because he doesn't have, because he wasn't thinking he was speaking today. So it's not working. He would have some good advice.
Yeah,
I know.
Daddy can't hear him. He can't hear him.
Yeah, but just to reiterate, be well grounded in your why, work your networks and the networks of your existing business partners, and start small.
Yeah, it's got to be a good experience the first time out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Okay, well, I would say thank you again. You know how to reach us if you have any other questions. And the next meeting will be September 9th at 3 o'clock. And we would love your feedback because it also helps us determine what's next in terms of webinars. So thank you for joining us and have a great rest of the day.